welcome. If you seek truth, the truth shall set you free. Fear not. And now the agenda with Crystal Risotti.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Agenda with Crystal Risotti. I'm the host, Crystal, and thank you for jumping in and spending time with me on this show. We're going to talk about some updates to some of the former shows in this episode, and so I want to make sure that you've watched those other episodes. If you haven't, go back and watch them because they're going to be really good. But we do have updates coming out like every single day with different topics we've talked about, so I thought it's a good time to address some of the updates that we have. And I also have another topic I'm going to talk about in this one that we haven't talked about before, but I want to mention. So in episode 15, which is the one that we are doing now, we are going to dive into some things like Title IX updates, some of the DEI and ESG updates, and some things like that. So stay tuned and stay with me and make sure that you're telling your friends about this content so that we can meet a 1,000 subscribers. That's what we're trying to get to. Also, make sure you go check out revolverbroadcasting.com for more content and different shows, and the store where you can buy merchandise. Make sure on every video that you're watching, or if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're liking and commenting and subscribing and sharing, because sharing is caring. I love that part. Okay, so let's dive right in. We're going to talk about Title IX. If you could put slide 1 up, Josh, thank you. This is just demonstrating what we talked about before. It's part of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Title IX is also referred to as that, and it's Section 1557. The Office of Civil Rights enforces it. We talked about before how things are always renamed, or there's new organizations and things like that that come out. And by the time you get done putting all the pieces together, it's like a giant spider web. And this is an indication of that. Let's go to slide 2. This is the actual Code of Federal Regulations, Title 34, which deals with education. And the part about this one that I think is important to look at is it entails educational institutions controlled by religious organizations. So if you think your school's tied to a religious organization, or it's a private school or an alternative school, so it's not governed by the funky regs that have to do with diversity and inclusion that actually step over the boundaries of we as Christians, you're sadly mistaken. They're part of it too. It's blocked. So the update I want to tell you about is the fact that the bill was blocked in 4 states already on June 13th. There was a bill to include transgenderism into Title IX. If you recall, Title IX historically was dedicated to women's rights, and it started in the workplace, and then they amended it later to include schools and universities. And now they're trying to amend it to put in transgenderism. In fact, they did. The Biden administration was able to get that through, but it was blocked in Idaho, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Montana. And I'm so glad for that, because I don't want a wonka-donk in my bathroom or in my shower. I don't want to have to see that. I don't want my female children around me to have to see that or deal with it. I want female rights protected. So the irony of this is the bill was supposed to protect feminine rights, female rights, when it was first introduced, but look what it's doing now. It's reversing that. So that's the dangerous part of it. We talked about the issues with it in episode 8, and it's directly dealing with men and women's showers and bathrooms and in sports even. So the fact that it got blocked, at least for 4 states at that point, was really good. That happened in June 13th. The judge in that case cited, quote, abuse of power, unquote, and, quote, threat to democracy, unquote. The Department of Education, though, of course, supported the rule because they support everything that's woke. And they have indicated they're going to challenge the judge's ruling. They're expected to challenge it. But on Monday, June 17th, a federal judge blocked the expansion of protections in another 6 states. So a total of 10 states now. Those 6 states are Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. So I think this is a really great update to demonstrate the fact that people are waking up. States are waking up. We've got momentum going forward, and we just need to keep it going. The Education Department filed Friday in Missouri to ask for a preliminary injunction to block the block. They want an injunction to block the injunction. They said it would substantially harm the federal government's interest in preventing discrimination in federally funded educational programs and activities, and that's a quote from them. Isn't it interesting, again, with the virtue signaling and the gaslighting? Whatever they tend to accuse others of is what they're doing themselves. You understand that, right? So it's crazy how that works. Title IX, if trans women have unfettered use of showers and bathrooms and they get to participate in women's sports, again, I'm asking, how is this protecting women? CBS News issued a report dated March 15th that indicated there are also 16 college athletes suing the NCAA over their trans policies. Riley Gaines is one of them. You may have heard of her. She's really famous now, but she was an NCAA swimmer going for the Olympics, I believe. She was the top swimming competitor, and she ended up losing to Leah Thomas. I hate saying that because it's not Leah, it's a trans. Willie Thomas, right. But Riley, as a female, a full female, deserved first place, but was given second place. And then she decided not to participate anymore. She wasn't going to do this. She's been attacked by a trans person physically, and now she started some organizations to keep fighting to protect women's rights in regard to the transgenderism. So I want to give you a little bit of a clip to hear what Riley has to say directly. So let's watch the clip.
A district court judge temporarily blocked Biden's Title IX rule changes in 6 additional states. The rules were blocked in 4 other states just last week. Come on in, Riley Gaines. Riley, spell this out so we all understand it, please. What does this mean?
This is a huge victory, is what this is. Now these 6 states, it is Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, and Indiana. They join Montana, Idaho, Mississippi, and Louisiana, and ultimately saying we will not comply with Joe Biden's illegal administrative rewrite of Title IX set to take effect in August. A federal court ruled in this favor, which is huge. Not only is it now 10 states, I mean, that's 20% of the states. This sets a good precedent for cases like mine, ultimately suing the NCAA. It's great news. It's a victory not just for women and girls, but really for humanity here.
Oh.
I love that. She's so cute. If you can, follow her on social media because she has some really good content as well. I want to just keep pointing out the fact that women's rights are actually being attacked through the bill that's supposed to protect women's rights. And we don't have a full win. We haven't won the war, but we've won some battles. I think that we need to make sure that we're promoting that. I want to know where the other states are. I'm happy that I'm in Indiana and our attorney general joined on to that lawsuit for us. You know, where are the other states? Let's just keep the momentum going. Pressure, if you're in one of the states that hasn't gone for this, let's turn it upside down and we'll see what happens with the lawsuit. Switching gears to student loan forgiveness. This isn't something I've talked about really before, but I really wanted to dive into that because there's some really deep stuff going on with the student loan forgiveness. In 2022, if you don't know, the Biden administration tried to institute a plan and forgive student loan debt up to $20,000 for each person per borrower. It was called the HEROES Act. But the Supreme Court in 2023 ruled against it because the executive branch doesn't have the power of the purse. Congress does. So he literally could not do that. He didn't have the power to do anything financial. Congress has to do that. Instead, well, I find it ironic that Congress actually called it, the Supreme Court called it unconstitutional. So they overrode it. If you've been following social media at all, especially conservative social media, you might have seen a clip recently where Biden actually lied in one of his speeches and said he was a constitutional law professor at a college. He never did that. It's been fact-checked. He was never a constitutional law professor. And it's clear from this. Let me ask you this. If he was, wouldn't he have known that was unconstitutional? Just a thought. But he didn't give up there. He tried again. The same day the ruling came out from the Supreme Court, he created the Plan B debt forgiveness plan. It's like a Plan B contraceptive pill, I guess. Always have a Plan B. But yeah, he did that the same exact day that the court issued the ruling. He also agreed on a settlement for 200,000 borrowers who sued the Department of Education, claiming that their colleges or universities defrauded them. Another program he's done forgave almost $51 billion for public service workers for student loan debt. Now, the public service workers are government workers, and I'm talking teachers, social workers, government lawyers, etc., according to the article, and you can find the link to that below. Think about that. You've got professionals. These aren't people working the front line at McDonald's. These are professionals who went to college to get a professional degree. They're working in the government. And so because they're in the government, let's just not make them pay their loans back. Is that fair? It's not fair. Why? Also, just so you know, things are never free. So when they say student loan forgiveness, that debt gets transferred to us taxpayers. And so then I have that question about why should I have to pay for their, education? And why should you have to pay for their education? They're benefiting from it, not me. I'm not benefiting from their education. They are. I think it comes down to buying votes. That's what it comes down to for me. The Plan B forgiveness that hasn't yet gone into effect, expect it to be pushed before the election this year. It will forgive over $7 billion in loans for approximately 160,000 borrowers with an effective date of July 1st. Based on the Department of Education analysis, there are so many little plans that have been done that I can't even keep track of them. There are plans and different articles I've pulled, and I tried to make heads or tails out of, let me just get an outline, bottom line of all the plans that they've tried to pass and have been successful in passing some. And I'm telling you, again, with the spider web, there's too many to even figure it out. But the good news is that Plan B, which is now known as SAVE, all caps, SAVE, it's on hold. According to MSN, several states are suing to stop it. Again, with the states suing to stop it, thank goodness. Kansas and Missouri have received an injunction already. And now it's estimated that in the Missouri lawsuit, the plan would cost taxpayers a total of $475 billion over the next 10 years. Again, remember I told you the debt isn't paid for. It's not just dismissed, it's transferred. Nothing's free. So it's going to be put on the taxpayers' back. And just in the Missouri lawsuit, they're talking $475 billion added to taxpayers over the next 10 years. Those lawsuits also are claiming that the Biden administration bypassed Congress, which they did. According to General Chris Kobach of Kansas, he says, Kansas's victory today is a victory for the entire country. As the court correctly held, whether to forgive billions of dollars of student debt is a major question that only Congress can answer. Biden's administration is attempting to usurp Congress's authority. This is not unconstitutional. It's not only unconstitutional, it's unfair, he said. Blue-collar Kansas workers who didn't go to college shouldn't have to pay off the student loans of New Yorkers with gender studies degrees. Interesting that he put it that way, because each state suing isn't suing just for their state. They're suing for the nation. You can't forgive student loan debt on a state-by-state basis because it's a federal program. Okay, so I wanted to point that out. And I agree with them. Nothing's free. Personal experience, I paid on my loans for 23 years. There were a couple times I had to go into forbearance because of life events. 23 years, and I just paid them off a few years ago. And I couldn't afford at the time to pay my son's college. So, there are other options. You don't have to get loans. Find a company that does tuition reimbursement. That's another option. Or work somewhere at the school and you get a discount on tuition. There are other things available that will help with tuition costs. I do not believe it's a right that a child has that their parents or family pays for their tuition. I didn't have that. I don't recall that in the Bill of Rights. I think it's a privilege if your family can pay for your college tuition. I was a single mom. I couldn't afford it. I was still paying on my own college loans that I used for a degree to make more money to take care of my son. So there was no way I was going to be able to do both. And I encouraged him to find other alternatives. I do not want to pay for someone else's kid to go to college and get some frivolous degree that they're never going to be able to use. Again, I think it's the Biden administration pandering, and I think it's about buying votes. So that's the bottom line for me on that topic. Moving on to the World Health Organization and the pandemic treaty. We talked about that in a former episode about global health. And there's a pandemic treaty that was due for a vote. I believe it was in June. And it got postponed because word got out about this pandemic treaty. There are countries in Europe in particular that are balking against it because it takes away, they say it doesn't take the sovereignty away from a country, but it does in essence. And in their own pandemic treaty, they talk about penalties if you don't abide by what they direct you to do as a country. You don't have penalties on something that you're not required to do. And just like with the pandemic we just went through, people recommended things and countries jumped on it because they didn't know any different. A recommendation can be very strong too. It can be coercive. So I'm not buying it. But there was a recent meeting of countries about One Health, and that's a new term. I don't believe we talked about it before. It's part of the United Nations and the World Health Organization as well. And again, it's another situation where they create a new organization or they change the name of one. It's doing the exact same thing as the others, but it's a way to kind of subvert your attention away from it and to confuse people. It's the same mission. One Health met to discuss what part of the One Health agenda should be included in the pandemic treaty and who should be included in the pandemic accord. Did you know there's a pandemic accord? Apparently there is. So the supposed goal of One Health is actually to reach out and help underserved countries. And they work with both, prosperous countries and underserved countries, and they try to collaborate some kind of agreement between the two to help with the health within those underserved countries. It is focused on countries, not on a global scale, but the pandemic treaty is global. So the argument they're having is about whether to keep the initiative at a country level or move it to a global level. One of the leaders actually stated, quote, take surveillance, for example. There's so much potential additional knowledge, so much sharing is good practice that you can get through an integrated surveillance system compared to a siloed one. unquote. So what she's saying, it was a female that said that, talking about surveillance. Of what? Of whom? What are they surveilling exactly? And this is a case in point where I've said before, it's not always about what they say they're going to do. It's about how they say they're going to do it. So my question is, how are they going to be surveilling the information? And what are they going to do with the surveillance information? Is this another infringement on our rights? Is it another infringement that the global community is pushing on a sovereign country? Something to think about. More to come on that. Now I'm going to switch gears to diversity, equity, and inclusion, or I like to say diversity, inclusion, and equity because I like the acronym DIE instead, and ESG. There was recently a exposure of Tractor Supply, the store Tractor Supply, the corporation, about how they're incorporating in DEI and ESG scoring into their mission and the way that they operate. And there's a guy named Robbie Starbuck. Let's put up slide 3. He did an investigation and he did a video on it. And we're going to watch some of that video in a minute, but I want you to see what's happening at Tractor Supply. And the reason this is an issue is because Tractor Supply is used by a lot of conservatives as, you know, farming supplies and things like that for them. And this just goes to show how woke it has gone. The first thing, LGBTQIA plus training for employees, and then funding pride and drag events, even for kids. I'm going to tell you that. They have a DEI council. They have funding for sex changes. They have climate change activism. They have Pride Month decorations in the office. They have DEI hiring practices and events at work. The owner of the company, or the CEO, his name is Hal Lawton. And we're going to look at Robbie, kind of expose him as well in a second in the video. So let's start the video and watch a little bit of it to kick it off.
All right, y'all, you're going to want to see this. I don't think anybody's gone into this the way I'm about to. It is time to expose Tractor Supply. What you see behind me, this is what workers see walking into the distribution center in Franklin, Kentucky. But it doesn't stop here. You might be thinking, oh, maybe this is just some woke person at that center who decided to do this. No, this is just tip of the iceberg. You ready for this? Fair warning, you're going to want to strap in because this is going to be a long video because we're going to expose it all the craziness that they have done that their customers have no clue about. This company is absolutely stupid for doing this. The vast majority, and I mean vast majority of their customer base is conservative, including myself. I have spent tens of thousands at Tractor Supply. First, here's some more of what awaits you at that distribution center if you work there. You might even be thinking, you know what, Robbie? Maybe this isn't a Tractor Supply center. Maybe this is somebody tricking you who sent you these photos to try to get you to put out a story that's not true. Well, no such luck. There's the lockers over there for Tractor Supply Corporate, and they've got some cute Juneteenth celebration stuff too up, along with the trans flags. And here's what Tractor Supply has on their team member TV. I want to state I take no pleasure in doing this. I am a Tennessean. I do not want to hurt a Tennessee company, but conservatives deserve to know that this is where their money's going, and it gets worse. There is more. By the way, this is their CEO. More on him later, but I think you get the picture here. Let's jump to...
Okay, for those listening on audio, you can find Robbie Starbuck on X and find the video that I'm playing on there, but I'll just describe a little bit of it to you. First of all, he's showing in the video behind the scenes all these different decorations and Happy Pride Month and rainbow stuff, and then the CEO actually getting the jab and promoting it and, you know, bragging about it basically. Now, for those who aren't offended by any of this, I just want to make it clear, as a conservative, I don't care what people think and what they want to do with their lives as adults. The two things, and I've said this before, the two things I have a hard time with and I won't tolerate is pushing it on kids and it being in the workplace. To me, what does that have to do with them selling farm supplies? Nothing. So you have to come to the conclusion it's an effort to indoctrinate, it's an effort to normalize it. Okay? We as Christians have values against it. It's against the lifestyle, against the stuff that's going on in that, definitely against the exposure to kids. Okay? I'm not judging anybody who doesn't have those concerns. What I'm saying is don't, just like I'm not going to cross the line with you, you don't want God brought into the workplace, which I would argue I can't leave at home when I walk through the door, number one. But I don't, try to proselytize at work and stuff like that. I will abide by that. Just like you don't want that happening, don't you dare make me have to look at that stuff at work and have to deal with it. It's not right. It's crossing the line of values. I don't infringe on your values, don't infringe on mine. And it has literally no place in the workplace. The only reason they're doing that is back to the ESG scores that we talked about in a prior episode. Number one, your funding sources. If they want to borrow money, because they're a large corporation and large corporations often do borrow money. If they want to borrow money, all the big funding companies are in league with the United Nations. We talked about that in the global economy episode, how that's laid out. And they have to abide by these ESG scores in order to get funding. Again, back to, we're not going to make you do anything. No, you're not, but you're going to coerce me into it, and you're going to punish me and be punitive about it if I don't do what you want. So that is the same as forcing it. Coercion in a court of law is forcing. So why do you think this guy's doing it? I mean, he's the CEO. We've seen companies go down this road before. It hasn't worked well. And we're going to see what's happened to Tractor Supply as a result of this. But first, let's play some more of Robbie's video.
Let's jump to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah, they have a whole section about DEI on their website, and you've got to love that they put the stock ticker on it. I mean, that's kind of funny in a dark way. I questioned if the CEO was truly involved with the wokeness of this company, but I think this DEI statement from him kind of says everything. So you can pause this video real quick and take a gander at that. Oh, and look, they have a DEI Inclusion Council. In fact, they're so committed to DEI that they release yearly reports on how many more minorities they're hiring that year. Tractor Supply is doing such a good job of being woke that the Human Rights Campaign has given them an A grade. What did they do to earn that A grade? Let me show you. Their inclusive benefits, where they score a perfect 50 out of 50, include providing equal health coverage for transgender individuals without exclusion from medically necessary care. So you might be thinking, maybe that doesn't include transitions. Well, according to the definition at the Human Rights Campaign website, yes, in fact, equal health coverage for transgender people means that they are paying for transitions. So yes, when you go buy stuff at Tractor Supply, apparently that's what you're paying for. They also received a perfect score in internal training and inclusive culture for providing 4 LGBTQ internal training elements, including intersectionality training, providing at least one LGBTQ plus inclusive data collection effort, and providing gender transition.
Yeah, so remember the Human Rights Campaign we talked about in a prior episode about the UN? It's part of the globalist agenda. And do you recall why they're pushing the LGBTQ plus agenda? If not, you need to go back and watch that video because we talk about that. It has to do a little bit with overpopulation and decreasing the population. So that's interesting to me. Again, why is a company involved in paying for transgender surgery? Make that make sense for me. Link those two together because it doesn't make any sense to me. It has nothing to do with farm equipment and supplies. For Pete's sake, have we gone nuts? Let's look at a little bit more of this video.
Guidelines. The closest Tractor Supply has come to being held accountable for their woke behavior is when they were caught last year sponsoring a drag show in Waco where kids were exposed to this family-friendly drag show. You might be thinking maybe they learned their lesson after that. Maybe they stopped using the money from their conservative customers to fund this stuff that their customers are diametrically opposed to. But no. I looked, and they actually just sponsored Franklin Pride here where I live in Franklin, Tennessee. You wouldn't notice right away if you looked at this list of vendors because it just says TSC. It doesn't have the Tractor Supply logo anymore like it used to, but I was able to confirm it was them. On the map that attendees received, you can see the Tractor Supply logo logo very clearly at that table because that was their vendor booth right next to the trans flag. And yes, there were kids all over this event. Even the Washington Post admitted that Tractor Supply was selling the Queer Agenda card game, which has now been removed from their website.
They always love to groom kids, don't they? They love exposing them to it. And if you have a problem with me saying grooming, I'll just say coaching kids because it's the same thing. But, you know, it seems like grooming has some kind of red flag on it now. But, you know, still, they're coaching kids. They're exposing them to this. We talked about how seeds are planted with kids. Those seeds are watered and they turn into thoughts. And the kids are curious and they entertain those thoughts. And before you know it, they're actions. That's their intent. That is their intent. I saw an interesting question the other day by somebody. They said they were asking somebody who's a transgender person and pushing this LGBTQ agenda. They said, do you want everyone to be gay or transgender? Do you want everyone in the world? Would you be happy with that? And they couldn't answer it because innately people know that means there's no more population. There's no more reproduction. I mean, it's against nature. And again, the term perversion means not in the natural use intended. That's what perversion is. This is a perversion of the natural use. Talked about that before too. Let's go on and watch some more of Robbie's video.
CEO Hal Lawton is so committed to DEI, inclusivity, and yes, climate change that he even wrote an op-ed about it in the Tennessean. Here's some of what's in it. He brags in it about how they've increased their ethnic diversity on their board and management executive committee and that they've conducted unconscious bias training for over 40,000 team members. And to those 40,000, I am so sorry you had to be put through that because I know you all would have rather been bit by 40,000 fire ants than sit through that training. This might be one of my favorite parts in his woke op-ed. He ends with saying that they rallied around the theme of stronger together at Tractor Supply. Why do I know that saying, stronger together? Oh yeah, it was this lady's slogan. And her book. This wouldn't be a surprise for anybody who's seen his likes on X. This is one of the posts he liked, which was a donation call from Joe Biden before the 2020 election. And this is him back when he was an executive at Macy's, launching the Kenneth Cole Pride Collection. He's also very proud of offering 50 whole bucks to his employees to get vaccinated at work for COVID-19. And just so you know how he feels about unvaccinated people, let's go back to his likes on X. Do you remember when Allison Williams was forced to leave ESPN because she chose not to get the vaccine while she was pregnant? Well, let's take a look at some of Hal Lawton's likes that day. If you get COVID while you're pregnant and you are unvaccinated, it could do serious harm to you and your baby. Being pregnant puts you at much more serious risk. It's not worth it. My wife got pregnant, no problem, a couple months after getting the vaccine. I cannot understand how putting your family at risk is a good decision. Why did you feel the need to post this? Oh, I don't know, maybe because her civil liberties were being violated? Any real doctor would tell you to get vaccinated if yours didn't get a new one. Family first would mean she'd get the vaccine. Her husband, relatives, co-workers, they don't count as family. And last but not least, this is incredibly unfortunate. With this statement, you're promoting doubt in the vaccine. Hal also seems to like BLM. According to Google, Hal Lawton makes $11 million and owns almost $30 million in Tractor Supply stock.
My, isn't he checking all the boxes? He's just a typical progressive leftist wokey. I thought it was really funny when I saw that he uses the same slogan as Hillary and linked to Biden and Harris. This is a business case of why corporations and businesses should not be visibly aligned with a political party, in my opinion. It has, again, zero to do with farm equipment and supplies. Zero. Guess what? None of this has anything to do with beer. None of this has anything to do with pharmaceuticals. Well, the vaccine part maybe, but but the rest has nothing to do with pharma or commercial health care. It's, again, just to satisfy the ESG scoring. Again, a voluntary program, not required yet, but coerced because of funding sources. Robbie goes on to say what you can do if you're so inclined, and I wanted to mention this. I'm not going to play any more of the video, but I'll mention it. he says, don't take anything out on your local store because it's not their fault. The corporation is the one that's behind all this, the corporate headquarters. But you can email or call corporate to respectfully state your position, and I'm going to share that on here. The phone number is 615-440-4600. That's 615-440-4600. That's their corporate office. And he talks about just go buy from a different store. I know locally we have Rural King. We're going to look into that because I'm not sure if they're on the Woki train or not. I don't think so, but that's another alternative. If you have one, look into that. But I do want to show you and end this segment on a really fun note. Let's go to slide 4, Josh, if you don't mind. Look at the stock for 1 week for Tractor Supply. It tanked. According to what I researched, it actually dropped $2 billion in 1 week. And folks, I just want to tell you, this is how we win. This right here is how we win. Vote with your pocketbook, with your billfold, with your wallet, your purse, whatever you want to say. Vote with your money. Put your money where your mouth is. This is how we win. Hi guys, Crystal here from The Agenda with Crystal Risotti. I wanted to touch base with you, even though I'm in sunny Florida visiting my sister this week, because we tape our episodes like a week ahead of time. So the last episode is getting ready to air, and it was taped on July 26th. And in that episode, we talked about Tractor Supply and their DEI push and the way that they were going to be doing their business. That news had been out for at least a week, and their stock tanked because of their DEI policies and the things they were doing that were against their customer base, basically. And there's an update on June 27th, the next day, where Tractor Supply pulled back and issued a statement about what they were no longer going to do. They're no longer going to submit data to the Human Rights Campaign. They're going to focus their team member groups on mentoring and networking and supporting the actual business, which is what they should be doing anyway. Like the DEI stuff isn't work related ever. We talked about that. They were going to withdraw carbon emission goals, eliminate DEI roles, and retire the current DEI roles. So I wanted to touch base with you and add an addendum to the podcast episode because this is a big win. This is people voting with their money, whether it be stocks or purchases. Keep it up, guys. I'm not one to tell people to boycott businesses. I don't really go for that. I don't want to tell you what to do. I want to give you the information and let you decide what you want to do with it. But again, this is how we win. So congratulations and good job. If you like this content and you want to learn more about the different topics we talk about, make sure you check out revolverbroadcasting.com. Make sure you click like, you subscribe, you comment, and you share, because sharing is caring. Thank you. And again, go to revolverbroadcasting.com. Check it out. There's some other shows on there that I know you're going to love. Don't forget to check out our store on revolverbroadcasting.com for merchandise that will blow your mind. Just go to the Revolver website, click on store, and check out all the merchandise for all the different shows, including The Agenda with Crystal Risotti. I know you're going to want to buy some of that. That's all the content I had for you today. I do want to remind you that, go check out revolverbroadcasting.com, the store, do all the things. And with that, I'll say see you next time.